Hi, Corey here with Team Backcountry. Today I want to talk about the Swarovski ATX BTX combination. It's a modular kit. With the addition of the BTX this last year, we get a lot of questions which unit's right for you and how the whole system works. So originally Swarovski came out with the ATX, A standing for angled, and the STX, which would be the same thing, just in a straight eyepiece. I've owned this unit for probably about 5 years now. Really enjoyed it. They make this modular combination in 3 different sizes. They make a 65mm lens, an 85mm lens, which I don't have but I have used, and a 95mm lens. I originally started out with this combination here. It was the cheapest way to get into the system. Owned this unit exclusively for probably about 3 years. Right before we drew a great late season muzzleloader tag, I picked this up so we could shoot some more video through it. The obvious advantages and disadvantages of the 65, 85, and 95 is as you slide towards that bigger unit, it's going to get heavier, but it's also going to pull more light. The 65 and the 85 are both going to be a 25 by 60 power, where the 95 is going to be a 30 to 70. The 95 pulls an amazing amount of light. I do see, especially when I start raising that magnification and shrinking my exit pupil, we see that the ability to pull light, we see that really go downhill quickly. So really enjoyed this. It's a great backpacking unit. It still pulls light really well, but if you're shooting a lot of video, glassing a ton in low light, that 85 and 95 will definitely pull more light. And I think if you're only going to have one, the 85 is probably the right unit. Now, this last year, they did add the BTX unit. And so, I like to think it stands for binocular. But it is a 2-eye viewing unit. I've had this for 8 or 9 months now. We got to take it up in April on a bear hunt, April and May. We've taken it on a couple scouting trips now. I had planned on buying a set of 15s for glassing in Nevada for big open country. They released this and I opted for this unit instead because Jason and Dustin already have some 15s. This will clip on to all of the same modular pieces, and so I really like to refer to this as a system. You know, it took me close to 6 years to get all this. None of it's cheap, but the fact that you can piece it together over those years, start adding the units, is really a cool system, and it's unique to Swarovski. When you're on the BTX, it is going to be a fixed 30 power on the 65 and the 85. It's going to be a 35 power on the 95, and that doesn't sound, it sounds like a big drawback. A lot of people when they're spotting scope shopping, they want to see those bigger numbers. It's a completely different experience when you're looking through both eyes. It allows your brain to really consume and understand and dissect what's in front of you, and it doesn't feel like when you've got that at 30 power rather than another one at 60, it doesn't feel like you're giving up that much. Couple things I've noticed about this. One of the pros of the ATX when they released it is they did put Swarovision, which is that field flattening lens for camera people, which I'll get into. That's a huge benefit. I think it's the best edge-to-edge quality of any spotting scope on the market. So, but I don't believe, and I couldn't tell you, it's not on their website or anything, they must put that Swarovision in this half, because when I'm rolling across the hill on the BTX, I feel like you have that pin cushion and bulge, and it might have the Swarovision. I haven't seen whether it's listed it or not, but it doesn't feel like it to me. It's not that big a deal. For me, it'd be nice to have it, but I don't take pictures through this anyway. If I'm going to take pictures, I'm going to take pictures through the ATX. I've also noticed if I run the same, if I hooked up, you know, 285s or 265s or whatever, and you held the objective the same, I truly think you pull more light through that ATX than you do the BTX. I think, you know, whatever system they have in there to run both eyes through it, it diminishes that light a little bit. Maybe not enough to matter, because your exit pupil is going to be pretty, you know, a little bit larger because you're at fixed 30 power, but it definitely does subtract from light. Now, I think being able to view through both eyes, you know, adds back into that, but, you know, you're spending a lot of money on spotting scope. If you're looking for the best light pulling spotting scope out there, the BTX probably isn't it. Where this shines is big open country. If you're glassing a hillside 600 yards away, you're going to feel like it's too close at 30 power. You feel like that field of view is almost too small. But when you're glassing stuff a mile plus, it's pretty awesome. And when you're trying to dissect country and you're really just looking for bedded mule deer, and you know, David Long goes into the 4 stages of glassing, and this would equate over to that, you know, that last stage where you're just picking, you're trying to find an ear flicker, you're trying to find a tine on a mule deer buried in a bush. I think that's where this shines, and that's what we've used 15 powers for in the past, and I still think that there's an application where these beat, or where a 15 power would beat out this, but I'm going to use it for glassing that 4th stage of glassing, big open country, where I'm trying to find just, you know, small pieces of the mule deer. You're not going to see the mule deer out in the open during the day in Nevada. So that's where this shines. We're going to take it with us on this first mule deer hunt. I'm pretty excited about it. It'll be the first, you know, I think a mule deer hunter is really who's looking at this the most. And this will be our first mule deer hunt with it, and we're really excited. That being said, a couple drawbacks of that. Once again, weight. It is going to be heavier. Now, if you compare it to, like, you know, a Koa Highlander, it's a lot lighter, even with the 95 on there. It also has, and I don't know how to maybe explain it, but the depth of field of view feels really deep, and I think what it is I think your eyes will adjust, just like a prescription. And I'll be glassing a hill, and say I'm going uphill and I start at the bottom and it's only 800 yards away, and then you get to 1200 yards and I haven't adjusted the focus yet, which is, you know, I would have adjusted it 10 times on a single eyepiece, and I think your eyes will start to make up for that because you're looking through both of them. And I think you could get some added eye strain, not because this isn't clear enough, but because you're not focusing it along the way. And then there's a kind of a trippy phenomenon when I'm using this, where if you have, say, a tree at the bottom that's pretty tall, and the hill goes up and away from you, and so the tree might be 500 yards away, but right behind the tree is 800 yards, or, you know, whatever. It'll try to focus in between it, or like your eyes will go back and forth, and it looks a little bit goofy. I wouldn't say it's a negative. It was just definitely something to get used to, because normally, you know, the tree would be completely out of focus. But because I think you're looking through 2 eyes, but only through 1 objective, it adds some distortion for your depth of field of view, where you can't tell what's closer and what's not. So, you know, something to look at when you're checking them out if you're considering getting one. I still think if you're going to start and you're just going to have 1 unit, I think that this comes out to be more versatile. This is super comfortable for, you know, extended uses if you're going to sit behind it for a few hours. That's the reason we went to 15s, is just so I don't have to wear a pirate patch. I get a headache from just closing an eye. And so definitely extended glassing sessions, you get up past an hour, this is going to really do well for us. We watched a bear for 45 minutes just on a hillside, just chewing its cud, and I mean, it was awesome. I think also long-range shooters are really going to enjoy this. ROs at like PRS matches, sitting spotting for guys. It'd be cool if you could integrate a reticle in there somehow, but sitting and glassing and watching guys shoot targets, this is phenomenal for. They also have, for this system, being modular, I think this piece is $300 or $400. It's a 1.7 magnifier. It will turn the 65 and 85 on an ATX into a 40 by 100. The 95 it'll turn into a 50 by 120. And then it'll turn the 65-85 from a 30 fixed power up to a 50, or the 95 up to a 60 power. You definitely lose a little bit of clarity. I actually expected to lose more clarity, and you do lose a little bit of light because you're adding a couple more pieces of glass to the system. But that will literally just pop in here. We used this the other day for checking out, you know, we had paper at 300 or 400 yards, and we were shooting 22 calibers into it, and so we were just looking for real small holes, and this was pretty awesome for it. So it really adds a lot to that system. Probably not something I'm going to drag into the field. Dustin had it out on a scouting trip. We were glassing a hill at probably 1.5 miles or 2 miles away, and he made the comment he felt like he was too close with it. And I think that 30 power, while guys get caught up because we're used to, you know, 20 to 60 power spotting scopes, guys get caught up with that number, and I just don't think it's that important to get any higher than 30 power. You can just see so much, you can understand so much of what's in front of you. I think anything further, you're magnifying too much dust particles, heat waves, and that sort of stuff, that you're just going to have the physics of distortion in front of you. So definitely a cool system. Don't know how much use I'll get out of that. I think that'll be more for long range shooting, target shooting. I think I'll enjoy that at times. But kind of a unique thing. Probably stay at home. It's just, you know, we're trying to save weight. When you're packing this much weight around, you just, you know, you got to call out certain stuff that you're not going to use. So going back to between deciding which one you want, if you want the ultimate digiscoping setup, I don't think you can beat this ATX. They make what's called a TLS APO adapter. This will go on any interchangeable lens camera. You have what's called a T2 adapter. They make them for Canon or Nikon, Sony, the E-mount, pretty much any interchangeable lens camera you can mount it to. The Micro Four Thirds system. It just screws on the T2 mount. You pick your Nikon camera, that'll thread on. If you get the Swarovski one, it'll actually time it, which is kind of nice. And then that's just going to pop right on your camera lens. And then when you're on a target, you'll put your whole camera, and that will just slide on. You've got a set piece there. Now they do make 3 different sizes of the TLS APO adapter now. They make a 23mm, they make a 30, which was the original, and then they make a 43. And that just refers to what size of camera you have. So the 43mm, if you have a full frame camera, a DSLR, the 43 is definitely, you know, what you'll want for that. The 23 is really designed for that Micro Four Thirds, and then the 30 is kind of in between it. I started out with the 30 because that's all they made. I really enjoyed it. We picked up the 43mm this year. Jason's got some really nice cameras. He shoots some really good pictures and videos, so I'm excited to see what he'll do with that. You can digiscope with this. I believe this is a SL42 eyepiece, and so basically you buy the same adapter you would for SLC binocular, and so you can hook a phone up to it. It doesn't have like a great camera digiscoping adapter that I'm aware of, so you can take pictures. You're just not going to get as good a quality pictures as you can out of an ATX or an STX, so definitely beats it out there. I think this is, between it being lighter, it's a little more versatile. We can zoom in and out on it. I still think this is the go-to when you're starting your system. This is a great additional piece. I just think that it's a little too heavy, and we really like taking pictures and video through our ATX. So for us, if I was starting all over again, I'd do it the same way. I didn't have the option because the BTX didn't exist at the time. But I think this is the go-ahead. If you haven't looked through the BTX though yet, and you own an ATX, it's worth looking through. You will use that BTX as you add that system. I know a lot of guys have, you know, a 65 and 85 or two of these, or have considered it. It was a no-brainer for me because I had two objectives and an ATX, so now we have two working spotting scopes, which is pretty cool. It's a unique system that only Swarovski does. I think that this system is hands down the best spotting scope system on the market. If you compare their ATX to their old spotting scope, which would be the ATS, even the 65, Dustin's got an old 80 HD. It's a great spotting scope, but when they changed this eyepiece, it's a much better system. It's a better mousetrap. So I'm pulling more light with the 65 than an old 80 there. Really happy with, you know, the cheapest setup they make in that ATX system, and then you can move forward. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments. Hit us up on Instagram. Whatever you need. Thanks for watching, guys.